Hey everyone, this is Cindy. I'm an attorney at Amity Law Group. I'm here with my partner, Jennifer Fu, and today we want to talk to you about the difference between a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust. So first thing, a revocable trust. A typical scenario for a revocable trust is perhaps with a family or an individual who has assets and some beneficiaries that they would like to make sure receive those assets. They want to make sure that the assets doesn't go into probate and it is going to be distributed to the correct beneficiaries. A lot of times people will amend their revocable trust because one of the benefits of a revocable trust is that it is revocable. You can make amendments to it, you can revoke it entirely, you can make a lot of changes, you can essentially change your mind. There is really nothing set in stone for a revocable trust as long as you maintain the mental capacity to make those changes. So there really isn't too many things that you can't change. You can change it at all. You can change everything about it, which is really important for people who have commitment issues to certain decisions. So a revocable trust is definitely the perfect scenario, the perfect solution for people who want to make sure that these choices that they make today can be changed tomorrow or in the next 5-10 years.
And Cindy, maybe, for certain situations, like if people say, hey, I only have one house, like is it really necessary to do a revocable trust?
Absolutely. So a revocable trust, the primary goal is to avoid probate. So in California, if you die with any assets above 160,000, it changes every year, but I think now it's about 160 something thousand. So you pass with, if you die and leave more than that amount of assets, then it'll go into probate. And so you want to avoid probate. That's the idea behind all of this, is to avoid probate. Probate is a very unnecessary process. It's long, it takes way much more money. The average probate cost in California is $34,000. So if you want to avoid paying that or having your beneficiaries pay that and wait the year and some amount of time, especially now during COVID, the actual administration period is going to take even longer than a year. So if you want to make sure that your assets are passed in an efficient way and quick as possible, is to set up a living trust, especially when you have one house, or especially when you have more than one house as well.
And what about minors? Do you think, if people have young children, is this something they should also look into?
Yes, because you never want to leave assets outright to young children, to minors, because minors cannot hold assets until they attain the age of majority. So if you pass and your children or your beneficiaries are still underage, they're not going to be able to directly receive those assets. They would have to go through another court process called a guardianship. And so that, it's another layer of difficulty and waiting and expenses. So if you set up a living trust for your beneficiaries who are minors, then they can just go through the living trust. You don't have to go through a court. Your trustee would take over your assets and help maintain and distribute those assets to the minors accordingly, according to your terms that you set out in your trust.
Okay, so Cindy talked about the revocable trust. I'm going to introduce to you the other type of trust, which is called the irrevocable trust. So the benefit of the irrevocable trust essentially is that it takes the asset out of your own name. It goes into a trust that has its own tax ID. It's no longer considered yours because you have essentially transferred it out of your name. The benefit of that really is for either estate tax planning or for asset protection. So, a lot of us, especially in California, we're a very litigious state. So if you have a high risk of receiving lawsuits, or if you are just in a position where you have some creditors that may be in the future going after you, or you really just want to set aside some assets that you don't think that you're going to be using during your lifetime, then possibly you can consider it irrevocable trust. So again, it is a type of trust that is not as flexible. You essentially can't really make any changes to this type of trust. Once you set it up, the assets that you fund into this type of trust will belong to the irrevocable trust. You have a trustee who is not yourself and not anybody that really is within your family to control this asset and manage it for you. You will still name a beneficiary, and this beneficiary will receive this asset upon your passing. So it couldn't still be your children, somebody within your family, but in essence, during your lifetime, you are no longer controlling this asset. So if somebody sues you, they can not get to this type of asset because you can no longer control this asset. It's not yours anymore. It belongs to the irrevocable trust. And earlier I mentioned about estate taxes. So a lot of times, in the past, if you have a lot of assets that, would add up to close to the, value of the estate tax exemption, which is a number that if you fall under, you don't have to pay an estate tax upon your passing, then sometimes, people consider planning these things out and maybe putting a portion of their estate into an irrevocable trust to avoid estate tax or to minimize your estate tax. So the irrevocable trust is a little bit more complicated. It really depends on your situation. It's something that we would talk through with our clients to, see if whether or not it's really suitable for them, and whether or not, it's something that would really benefit them, because again, it is irrevocable. So it's a lot more to really consider before we set up. We have in the past set up for clients, who may not necessarily fund the trust right away. They may set up the trust, have it ready, and when they, when the timing is right, then they would transfer certain funds or certain assets into this type of trust.
Jen, are there better or certain type of assets that that people should transfer into an irrevocable trust versus a revocable?
Sure. A really common type of asset is your life insurance. So a lot of times, once we buy that life insurance, we kind of just leave it there. We make the annual payments maybe, but you really don't make too many changes to it. So this is a suitable asset to put into an irrevocable trust. Many people don't really realize that, your life insurance policy, the proceeds that get paid out, they're actually added to your estate. So let's say, you bought a really big policy, like, I don't know, a $3 million policy, that gets added to, your house, your business, any cash that you have. So the totality of that is your estate. So if you were to remove this and put this $3 million policy into an irrevocable trust, then this $3 million policy gets deducted basically from your overall estate. So it's a good way to help lower your estate if you're concerned about estate tax possibilities, or it really is just a good type of asset, because once you purchase that insurance policy, many people just leave it. There's really no changes to it.
Are there anything I have to do after it's set it up, after the irrevocable trust is set up?
So there are some formalities that you have to follow to ensure that the irrevocable trust is recognized as irrevocable. So because it has its own tax ID, if you do have income, you still have to file taxes, just like a business. And there are certain crummy letters that we call it, that you would have to send to and notify your beneficiaries that there is this asset here. But these are the things that, we would talk to you about once we are setting it up. The attorneys here, Cindy and I at Amity, we would go through these steps with you and make sure that they're done, so that the irrevocable trust is recognized as irrevocable. Yeah. And then, you know, one thing to mention also is another type of good asset is, you know, maybe if you own like a real estate that is going to go up in value. So, you know, again, we talked about estate taxes. You want to try to minimize uh, your overall estate, right? So if you're really wealthy, or if your, you know, company's about to go public, or if you have a property that you know is going to appreciate, then perhaps these are the type of assets that you can put into a trust, an irrevocable trust, because it'll again lower your overall estate once it's removed from under your name and into an irrevocable trust. But you know, these are kind of a lot of details that we would talk to you about and discuss also with your CPA. We usually work together hand in hand with them to make sure that not only, you know, the legal aspect is taken care of, but also the tax consequences and, you know, things to consider are also taken care of. All right. So, you know, we at Amity, we provide free consultations. So feel free to reach out to Cindy and I. We would be happy to talk to you. We're very nice people. So we would be happy to have a conversation with you. Anything to do with your estate plan, whether or not it be revocable or irrevocable trust, feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to talk to you.